So there are these two big feral tomcats that live in the conservation area behind the backyard and prowl at night that provided a unique opportunity to test the cat-in-a-box phenomenon. What is it about these truly feral cats, descendants of generations of feral cats, that draws them to sit in boxes? I know there are many other videos and web articles out there claiming to solve this riddle, but virtually none of them deal with cats in their natural wild habitat, or especially at night. Most wild cats in environments not determined by humans tend to be crepuscular or nocturnal. Often the small fractured ecosystems in which feral cats live are quite variable and not easily given to generalizations. Human-habituated big cats are observed in captivity such as zoos and rescue centers, and the motivations of domestic cats relative to boxes are interpreted in domestic settings. Generalizations based on captive or domesticated animals are not necessarily applicable to every cat's ecosystem, especially those living by their wits in the wild. What appeal would boxes hold for them? If you've been following this channel, you know I have periodically dealt with an influx of feral cats over the years from the conservation area behind the backyard. I'll put links to some of the most recent stories in the description and a pinned comment. The conservation area is a dense Florida subtropical seasonal wetland with impenetrable saw palmetto thickets among scattered longleaf and slash pines and short scrubby oaks surrounded by canals. Animals are drawn to the fence line and sharp habitat boundary between civilization and wildness. My plan was to remove some of these feral cats, have them treated by vets and transferred to a feral cat colony. At the same time, I wanted to learn more about these fascinating feral cats which exist where they do, only because of human irresponsibility. They are survivors and readily adapt to these damaged ecosystems. The bottom of a box used to send Oregon pears at Christmas time with some nice soft cushioning material for the pears provided a perfect sized test box. It didn't take long to find out that common wild animals of the backyard had little use for boxes. Opossums could care less about a box, unless of course there was food in it. Ever-curious raccoons did a fair amount of sniffing, but showed no interest in a box that didn't have food in it. Armadillos just passed by without checking out the box. Armadillos always seem to be on a mission. Rats, which are often eaten by the feral toms, avoid open areas and boxes like the plague. Pun intended. Squirrels don't like random boxes. They might be traps, unless there are peanuts inside. Then they'd be there in a flash, throwing caution to the wind. I observed backyard birds showing no interest in the box. And not all cats were drawn to the box, and a cat's reaction to a box is not universal. This stray female tuxedo cat that was probably abandoned in the conservation area some months ago showed no interest in the box or catnip when offered. Another big female that was easily trapped, neutered, and released into another colony also had no interest in catnip or the box. You can see her in other videos linked in the description. Assuming there are no attractants, i.e. food, no animals except the feral tomcats were drawn to the boxes. So a little backstory on these two big feral tomcats, the stars of this box experiment, before I present the rest of the video test results. The jungle conservation area is dark and wet half of the year and dry in the winter. Little sunshine penetrates to the surface of this jungle in any season, and the cats occasionally come out on colder mornings by Florida standards to bask in the sun next to the fence, where they can make a hasty retreat. They like a backstop so nothing can sneak up behind them. These cats hold humans in contempt, especially the oldest one, which has escaped being trapped twice. He puts on an ominous scowl whenever he realizes he's being watched. I can film them from the house about 100 feet away on rare occasions when they come out in the early morning or evening, but then he moves toward them and they are gone. The other younger feral tom is bigger with huge jowls and more stunning coloration and a pattern to the fur, but both cats' appearance is variable due to light conditions and angle of the sunlight, but you should have no trouble telling the two apart at night. Returning to the rats for a minute, there are so many rats in the canals and jungle behind the backyard that I've never seen these cats even bother to chase after birds. Here the old-timer is relaxing right under where a white-winged dove is feeding without a care, and the resident backyard blue jay guards are not alarming on him, although I'm sure they're watching. Of course these cats would take a bird like a dove on the ground if an easy opportunity presented itself. I've seen Cooper's hawks take out quite a few doves, but not a cat. Note the dried blood on the cat's forehead, probably from a recent rat kill. The cats are of course just one more ingredient of the ecological mess that is suburban Florida today. Every small local ecosystem is unique. Here the invasive rats are brutal and impossible to control in a semi-tropical forest wetland. Called roof rats or palm rats, they could get at every single ground nesting or tree nesting bird nest. Here's an example of where they chewed their way into my camper van. They are relentless. As I mentioned earlier, these rats avoided the box, but they will make quick dashes from the fence line to grab cat kibble from the feral cat trap. The rats and cats are most active at night, and here the old cat comes up empty, but more often than not he gets his rats. The feral cats also prey on native lizards and small snakes, which are relatively easy meals to catch. I don't want to dwell on rats, but if you live in Florida and let dense vegetation connect from your house to a canal or a wild area, you're going to have rats. Most of the time they're happy in the crown of palm trees. Get yourself a trail camera and check them out. The first night I put the box out, the older feral cat immediately checked it out after sundown, seemed a bit nervous or suspicious and did not sit in it, but returned to the jungle. He returned very early the next morning around 2:39 and stayed in the box for about an hour. He stopped by for shorter visits to the box each of the next 3 nights. Later on the 3rd night, the big dominant tomcat discovered the box and claimed it as his own. I was surprised to see the old Tom sit beside the box and hang out with the dominant Tom. Initially they had not gotten along well, but it now appears they hang together at times, as long as the old Tom knows its place. But it did appear that the box was now off limits to him. These cats did not hang out in the box out of boredom, as is often thought to be the case for captive or domestic cats, big and small. These feral cats have plenty of constant stimulus just surviving their daily lives. They had no intention of using the boxes as hiding places for ambush hunting or for security. It was probably more dangerous for the cats to hang out in the boxes, as it was harder for them to keep complete surveillance of their surroundings, and they were not protected. It did not appear to matter whether there was a bit of catnip in the box or not, although a little residual odor might have added to the comfort effect, as they did appear to find comfort in hanging out in the box. The big Toms only used the box between dusk and dawn, and mostly well after nightfall. The dominant tom did come out early one morning just before sunrise and enjoyed the first few rays of the sun hitting the backyard for a bit before returning to the jungle. I think these cats' natural curiosity made the box irresistible to investigate. And just taking a rest from the daily feral grind, the boxes offered comfort and perhaps a break from the constant bug bites they get sleeping on the ground in the jungle. I did not try an enclosed hiding box, as a hiding box in this real outdoor scenario would essentially be traps for the cats, which they are generally too wily to fall for. Their primary threats are from humans, coyotes, and bobcats, and the occasional tussle with a large raccoon. But feral kittens face many more threats than adults, including from raccoons, rats, snakes, and larger invasive lizards that raid their dens. The big feral cat may have been dominant, even stalking the much bigger bobcats that roam behind the fence. I'll put a link in the description to that video. But he was not at all savvy to traps like the old-timer, and was quickly and easily trapped, then treated by a vet and neutered and released into a feral cat colony, along with his feral girlfriend a few days later. In contrast, the old-timer escaped twice from the same trap in minutes that held the other two cats with no problems. I still see him now and then along the fence in the backyard. I put out some cat kibble in the morning, but the fish crows and jays generally get that. Any food put out at night would just go to the opossums and raccoons. But this old tomcat doesn't need any help from me. He is a legend of the jungle even among the raccoons, and he's earned the right to live out his final years in the jungle, and if he keeps another rat from getting into my camper van, more power to him. And I'll put a box out for him every now and then.